This isn't the ship. We should probably do that. Welcome to Intermission 1. In here, Vitillary will only follow us if we are on the floor. If we're on the ceiling, he will stand still. When you're not standing on the still, he'll stop and wait for you. So as you can imagine, getting past things like this just got a little bit more complicated. If Vitillary dies, you get sent back to the checkpoint. Now, I specifically waited to do Vitillary second because I really enjoy the stuff that he says in this intermission. You can come here, anyone that you save as the second crew member will be the one that you take through this intermission. And they all have different dialogue. Oh, Vitillary. See, this is exactly why I made sure we took Vitillary here. Now, in this next room, run, stop. You have to try to catch him. The one thing that got me so much in this room was I would continue running as fast as I can, thinking the further that I ran, the further he would go. But you actually have to come back a little bit to force him to stop, otherwise he won't make the jump. It's kind of irritating. That's true. You don't get this kind of interesting dialogue with anybody else, unfortunately. Now, this room is kind of irritating in that it's punishing. A lot of the rooms that we've gone through so far, if you mess up, you get sent straight back to a checkpoint. It doesn't hurt you too bad. This one can take a little bit to get through. So you gotta flip on this side and walk Vitillary over the platforms. Then make it back yourself and cross over to the other side with Viridian. If you mess up there, you can lose a couple of seconds, so you gotta take a little extra care. And this one, with the moving platform, just like before, you try to move back to catch Vitillary to get him to stop for you. If he doesn't stop early enough, or too late, he'll hit his head on a spike. And on here, get over here on its way up, and Vitillary will make it on its way down. And here, you can quick kill yourself to move over to the left, otherwise you have to walk all the way through that section again. And there's the teleporter. So we've successfully rescued 2 crew members. That's not good. Now you can see we've already explored everything down and to the left from the ship. I think it's time we started moving to the right. This is where things get a little bit more confusing. Now I tend to go up and to the left from here. So you can see our ship is on the left, and we have all this fancy stuff over here. I'll be exploring to the right, which will lead us to our last section. But for now, I'll just be exploring to the left, and we have a lot of rooms to explore on this side. But you can see, the ship isn't in too good of a shape. We're standing on top of the ship right now. All these pieces are pieces from the ship. That's not good news for the ship. But there's a lot of interesting structures out here that don't seem to be natural. Like, they look like they were built by other people that were here before we were. Which is interesting to think about. I think there's an area that we can catch into over here. Now, there are a number of areas in the overworld that themselves lead to trinkets. Not all of the trinkets in the game are found in levels. Some of them are just scattered about the overworld. This being one of them. And sometimes figuring out where they are can be difficult, because you can see this area is just 1 or 2 blocks on the right side that we have to wrap around to from the left and to get to from the right. It can be kind of confusing to figure out how to get to some of these places. Which is why it's really important your first time through to map as many squares as you possibly can. Now, I think we've already explored the place where that checkpoint leads to, so I'm not going to be going through there. There's another one up here. And again, just like with the difficult trinket that we got before, really minor movements will get you through here. You don't have to over-exaggerate anything that you're doing. Just be more precise and don't overcompensate when you think you make a mistake. It's really the best kind of advice I can give somebody who's just picking this game up, but I'm not an expert on it myself either. Looks like there's another thing up here, too. Infinite tunnel? That sounds like fun. We'll get to that later. That'll be the last place that we go. Spikes! As you can see, the teleporters actually serve as checkpoints in and of themselves, which can be kind of useful. There are spikes over there. What are we supposed to do to get past those? If you remember the little blue place that we had no way of accessing from the outside, this gives us a quick peek. We can't go in there, but we can at least get an idea as to what's inside there. So we'll keep that in mind for later. But as we work our way over here, notice it's a dead end. It doesn't really lead anywhere. It just leads to the right side of the space station we went through earlier. But there's a little square teleporter that sends us to another room completely out of the way. Sends us to another quadrant that's completely isolated from the world. So not all of these places are linked to each other naturally. Some of them will have these teleporters in the way. And the only way to access them is through the teleporters. Now, you can't beat the game unless you go through this area, so it's not like they're going to leave you hanging with this place that you have no way of knowing how to get to. But here's another really interesting location. You'll notice a lot of these rooms look kinda similar, as if we're just going from one to the other, but all of these are distinct locations. If you don't go through this holistically, you're going to find yourself really lost really fast. So I recommend, if you want to get all of the spaces in here, just go through one room after the other. Make sure that you cover everything that you can on your way through. And you'll be able to see everything. It's just really easy to get lost. But if you make your way through the maze, we make it to the entrance of another area. And I just want to make sure I covered all of those rooms. Now this one is the most confusing of them all. This is the only room we'll be able to exit this way after we get through here. As you can see, we can't go back the way we came. It just sends us to the other side of the screen. This is where things get a little bit confusing. And if you've never played this game before, it's probably going to look really confusing. But I love this area. It's probably my favorite area in the game, just because of all the interesting mechanics to it, just going from left to right. And this really, really confused me my first time. Figuring out where to go from here. You flip from up, down, left, right, but once you know what you're doing, this place is a lot of fun to go through. And the music in particular, I can't say enough about it. It's fantastic. I believe this one's called Pressure Cooker. Now here you have to keep a lookout on the other side of the screen to see where the triangles are and not flip into them. Because the one on the bottom has to be away from the one on the top, and you just have to think in terms of literally wrapping your head around the room. Thinking of going left to right, top to bottom, not just going in a straight line. You have to figure out exactly where you are as if the world loops around. Must be talking about that secret lab. That's the one we got a peek of earlier. And this one is kinda difficult your first time. I'm sorry for getting that on my first try, Alex. There's another faster way to get through their edge games. I think you can get through in 2 flips, and it's faster, but that's the way I've always done it. Making your way through here can be a little bit tricky, but again, knowing where you're going and understanding how to wrap your head around the room makes it a lot easier to go through. Here you just gotta make sure that you time your jump so that you don't hit the heart as it's going through. This room gave me a lot of trouble as I was picking up the game. But if you get your timing right, not too bad. I know that feel, bro. So we found our green buddy. Not this again. Looks like we got another intermission on our hands. If you thought the last one was bad, welcome to one of the most difficult rooms in the entire game. Tell you, anytime I think I'm doing well, I see this room, and it completely spoils the fun. It pretty much speaks for itself. You have to get through 60 seconds of assault by blocks from either side, and yes, you can wrap around, but the timer does give you 5-second checkpoints, so if you're able to clear a 5-second segment, it will save it there so you don't have to do it again. The tricky thing is, as this progresses, and as you make it through the 5-second segments, the patterns of the blocks will change. The first 30 seconds are pretty straightforward, just dodge the blocks as they come in from one side. As we hit 30, it becomes really, really irritating to get through. Because you have 2 blocks coming side to side, and you have to account for where they're going to be when they come in. As the new ones are old ones are leaving, new ones are coming, you have to account for where they are and where they're going to be. And this is really difficult to wrap your head around, even if you've played the game as much as I have. It can be incredibly difficult to predict and react. If you've been through here before and you're able to get through on your first time, then the pattern of the blocks that get sent through are set. But once you die the first time, anything goes. So you can practice a particular pattern that you get when you first go through if you're able to survive the onslaught in the beginning, but after that, anything goes. So if you're set on making sure that you have the first pattern down, you want to make sure you get through there flawlessly. That's probably one of the best Gravitrons I've had in a while.